All right, it's 6:30. Let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's good to see a big crowd here tonight. Okay. Um, Someone make a motion to approve our agenda. Do we have one change to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to pull D and make it B on the regular agenda.
Okay. All right. Anybody, got a problem with that? If not, somebody make a motion with that modification.
Motion to approve the agenda with
Okay.
the change.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Public comment. I've got a few on here. If it pertains to the public hearing or, this text amendment we moved down, if you'd rather, we can listen to you during that portion of the public hearing. If not, I'd be glad to hear you now. Beth Campbell?
Thank you. I had a few things for y'all.
Thank you, thank you.
First of all, thank you for the ability to be able to be here to speak to you this evening. Again, my name is Beth Campbell. I live and work in the town of Mills River, and my children attend schools in Mills River. My family and I come to the park weekly, sometimes daily, to enjoy the environment, the playground, the library, everything that our beautiful park has to offer in an ever-growing small town. It's safe, it's peaceful, and it's somewhere that they can come, they can play, they can be kids, they can ride their bikes, and just enjoy being able to be here, being in nature. Recently, we were out at the park and we were just past where the cows used to be, approaching where the picnic tables are, and we were approached by one of the maintenance workers and told that she, meaning my daughter, one was riding her hoverboard and one was on her rollerblades, that she had to get off, that she was no longer allowed to ride her hoverboard at the park. And I was pretty confused because we, first of all, never heard of this, never seen this. There's never been anything posted. We pass people at the park that work here on a daily basis, and no one has ever mentioned anything or said anything. And he said it's on the website, and I told him, I said, well, somebody should definitely inform the people of Mills River because we've never heard of this in all the years we've been here and all the years they've been riding. And he said, don't worry, he was making sure to stop everyone and inform them that they were no longer allowed to do so. He wasn't very pleasant. He kept throwing his hands in the air saying, I don't make the rules, and kept comparing them to drones, which I thought was very strange, about the liability, just like with drones, which again, strange. We continued on our way. My 7-year-old is very upset at this point and in tears because, first of all, she thought she'd done something wrong. And second of all, thinking she's never going to get to ride her hoverboard again. We don't live in big neighborhoods with sidewalks and areas for kids to play safely. We live in rural areas. We have a park that we work hard to pay taxes to maintain and support and fund and have the things that we have. But I did do some digging, and the only thing I was able to find was the information about self-propelled scooters. Still, the word hoverboard is never mentioned anywhere. I did reach out to Nicole, and she was very kind and emailed me back asking for some clarification on this and if there is a way to challenge this or what I need to do to talk to somebody about it. She shared the rule about self-propelled motorized vehicles and encouraged me to talk to our district representative. She provided all that information. She was very kind, very helpful. As always, Nicole is amazing and we love her. I did reach out to my representative. I haven't heard anything back, but I did continue doing a little bit more research, which is what I provided you with today. And it's been updated for 2024 and it's North Carolina hoverboard laws. And it goes through that that electric personal assisted mobility devices are defined as vehicles that are designed to transport one person, self-balancing, 2 inline wheels, and a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour or less. And this category includes hoverboards and segways. They can be ridden, excuse me, on sidewalks, bike paths, roads with speed limits 25 miles an hour and under. There are no age requirements, helmet or licenses needed to ride in North Carolina. They're considered pedestrians while operating and have to yield to right-of-way of pedestrians and other human-powered devices. And municipalities have the authority to regulate times and places in which they can be used safely. I mean, obviously, if we're having party in the park, we don't need everybody riding through here, even on bikes, when you have that many people. That's not safe. Totally understandable. We have, movie night, and we have so many more people than on a regular day when people are out riding their bikes and playing at the park. But municipalities do not have the ability to prohibit these uses of these devices. And that's also provided for you for the North Carolina statute on the following page. And it again goes over the same things. So I just wanted to provide you with that information. Again, at the end of the day, all I want is to be able to, my kids, as well as every other child that comes here to the park to play with their families, to be able to do so safely. But everybody keeps saying to me this liability, but nobody has defined it as what that actually means. And when that rule was apparently voted on, what that meant. I mean, I can't imagine the liability of, being hit by a car in the parking lot, being bitten by somebody's dog, falling in the river. I mean, there's all these things that are liabilities. So how that's different, I'm not really sure. But banning them from being ridden in a park really feels like policing on, according to this, something that we don't really have the ability to outlaw in the first place. But thank you for your time and for listening to me.
Thank you. We'll just have to look at that a little bit better. That's what we'll have to do. I'm sure it got just collected up with all the motorized stuff. Us older people not thinking about that kind of stuff. I will tell you that my grandkid, when it comes to safety on the hoverboard, he rode it for 7.5 years, ended up knocking all his front teeth out, his grown-up teeth. Yeah, so they are more dangerous than you'd think. It only took one rock. So what was his problem? He had a rock on the pavement and didn't see it, and it stopped and he didn't. Okay, moving on. We got 2 more. Mr. Foster, you signed up twice.
Well, I'm Jim Foster, and most of y'all know I live in Mills River. Reason I had signed up twice is one of them is more on a personal basis or on a neighborhood basis. Most of you probably are aware of what I'm about to talk about. This guy been going around from neighborhood to neighborhood that says he's providing environmental services and pest control. Well, I had an encounter with him Monday at 1:30. He showed up, and I immediately informed him that we have a sign out by the neighborhood, no solicitation. Well, I have a permit here from the town hall, and I have a permit, he says, from the police department, but and I said, well, it doesn't matter. But anyway, I was concerned, and I said, you need to leave. And he left my house, walked next door. I walked on over and told him again, you need to leave, and he did turn around and start. In the meantime, I called, and Jim came out, and we talked about it. And the point seems to be that we don't have any trespassing law in Mills River. I think we need to look at that, or will my no solicitation signs serve the purpose? But what do we need to do? I just want to, because I know I've 68 units over there, and elderly people, some of them, And they got real disturbed. I started getting a lot of phone calls, but I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing I want to bring up, as you know, I signed up twice, and what I want to bring up, maybe in your solicitor, well, that what I just talked about is probably covered in that solicitor. But the other thing is the planning board, is considering. We had a meeting, what was it, June 6th, I believe it was, to consider rezoning a partial of brown property up next to Amazon. They want to build, I believe it's 290 houses, or apartments, I should say. And they want to rezone it from, it's basically a commercial property now, it's next to Amazon. They want to rezone it to multipurpose, and so they can build these houses. And I just think that that's, we didn't have enough time to really discuss it, so we agreed to have a special meeting. I believe it was June 18th, and it wound up, we just really didn't have, we had some people who couldn't attend, so our special meeting got put off until August the 6th or 7th when we meet again. And my question is, I believe on those type proposals, we are supposed to act within 60 days, unless council gives us additional time. Jeff's not here, I was gonna let him do this. But, what I want to know is, I just want to make sure that our 60 days can be extended so we can have a meeting, and, because this is a big deal to me, and it's a big deal to Mills River. It'll make a great impact on the landscape and everything else here. If you drop in 290 apartments up there, I agree we need some additional housing in Mills River. I don't know if this is it or not, because we didn't have time to discuss it. So my point is, will you grant us extra time, because our August meeting is going to be past the 60 days.
So I'd refer to Mr. Melchek. How does that law actually state in our ordinance?
It actually says council may act
Yeah,
on a zoning text amendment or action if 60 days has passed. And I was planning to address this as part of my staff report tonight,
Okay,
is basically say that just because we don't meet in July, we're in this position where we're past that point. So again, I was going to address in my staff report and just report that to council and
okay,
see if there was a consensus for additional time.
okay.
okay.
That's as
Thank
simple as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Anyone else here for public comment? Hearing none? Okay, we'll move on. Approval of our consent agenda with D being moved down to B in our regular agenda. Somebody make us that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the modification.
All right, I got a first. How about a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandra. Any more discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, on to our regular agenda. Our public hearing on text amendment 24-03.
Motion to enter into public hearing.
Yeah, I gotta make a
Okay.
motion, yeah. Motion to go, need a motion to go into public hearing.
Make a motion to go into public hearing.
Thank you, James.
Second.
And Shay second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing. Who's gonna lead us this? Mr. Malchek? Thank you, sir.
Yep. Evening, everyone. Before I begin, this public hearing was properly noticed. We had legal advertisement in the Hendersonville Lightning on June 12th and the 19th. So this is, I believe, the first comprehensive plan amendment before council. This started with a conversation at the planning board's April meeting. where just like how we were talking about the zoning, we were talking about the inconsistency of the future land use map designating the area around the Ray Hill Boylston Highway intersection as commercial crossroads. So that encourages additional commercial uses. Planning board members felt this was not suitable for commercial development, in addition to some of the road safety issues with that intersection that I think we're aware of. So planning board directed staff to draft a comprehensive plan and future land use map amendment to basically delete that commercial crossroads future land use designation and change it to rural residential, which as part of this amendment, we're also changing to rural agricultural future land use district. So we don't get confused with the new rural residential zoning district we just adopted at the last meeting. The last thing the amendment includes, figured address two things at once, is expanding the commercial crossroads future land use designation around the Gash Road, Boylston Highway, I think all the way to Hunters Ridge Road, Forge Valley Drive. That whole kind of corridor has a lot of existing businesses that, again, we didn't want to see excluded in case there was a rezoning. So again, we decided to expand the commercial crossroads around that area just out of respect for those businesses. And again, this isn't a zoning change. This doesn't affect the zoning of a property or development rights of a property. The future land use designations are used when we look at the consistency for rezoning action. So if one of those property owners wanted to rezone to a commercial district so they could expand their business, this would support that. The planning board considered this at their May meeting and recommended approval unanimously. So let me go into a little more detail about the district. So the commercial crossroads description is these areas are intended to promote retail and services in the rural area of Mills River that is south on Boylston Highway. It calls for retail and business services as desirable uses, civic and community, parks and public space, trails and recreation, schools, restaurants, and agriculture as acceptable uses, and residential as an undesirable use. So again, we're looking at the northernmost purple area on the map there. Again, the request is to change that back to rural residential or rural agricultural as we're changing it to. And the description for that category is it emphasizes maintaining the rural character of the community. Development will include a mix of agricultural uses, rural homesteads, low density single family development, and low intensity employment uses. The rural agricultural future land use category calls for parks and public space, trails and recreation, agriculture, and estate lots as desirable uses, civic and community, schools, and single family residential as acceptable uses, and industrial, commercial, and multifamily as undesirable. For that area around that intersection, just to call out the couple businesses that are there now, there's one 4,500 square foot commercial building just north of the intersection. And there's a small self-storage property just south of the intersection. So not a ton of existing businesses there. So again, the future land use districts or designations are used for staff to make basically a consistency analysis when someone wants to rezone. So this isn't affecting any development rights or current zoning of any property. And then as I did, just talked about, basically if any of the properties at the southern end of the corridor, if you could go to the next map, Kevin. So this is the proposed amended map. And I just made them different colors so you can see. So the green area around the Ray Hill Boylston Highway intersection just denotes that's changing back to the green that everything else is, rural agricultural. And then can you zoom in on the purple a little bit on the south side, Kevin? Thanks. And then you can see here, there's some additional land included there in a lighter purple color. So that's the expansion of that area. It includes the Maple Valley Mobile Home Park. It includes some of the land between the gas station and the concrete plant. There's a little new parcel at the northernmost part that's the Rise Construction offices. But again, it's all contiguous and still in one area. So that's the expanded commercial crossroads area on the southern part of town. And then again, the change around Ray Hill and Boylston going back to rural agricultural now. Planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval and found it to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So again, in your packet, you've got the current version of the future land use map as attachment A, the amended land use category descriptions as attachment B, the amended category chart as attachment C. Again, those two really just changing rural residential to rural agricultural. We didn't mess with anything else in the descriptions of the districts. And then the future land use map amended that we just looked at as attachment D. And then you've got your planning board consistency statement and recommendation as attachment E. I'm happy to take questions.
Just to make sure, has anybody on this council got a conflict of interest owning any property or anything right there, especially in that green section? Nope. Okay, just covering the base. Ask away questions.
From council?
Yeah. Or from staff or
Okay.
whoever.
I had some questions. On the, what they had looked at, that what is allowed and what isn't allowed. I have a little heartburn with telling people what they can and can't do with their properties. I mean, they pay the taxes on them. And if we're looking at telling them what they can and can't do, I don't know how right I feel about that. And looking at, well, this ain't the time to look at what I pulled off the consent agenda. With where they're looking at rezoning for the commercial crossroads, if there's houses in there, are they grandfathered in?
Mhm.
Okay. We dealt with the piece of property earlier that I believe it was the Brown property then that was behind Amazon. And there was a gentleman had a house on it and he wanted it rezoned from commercial because he didn't have an entrance way in there big enough to support that. And if he remodeled his house, he could not take down the exterior part. He had to just redo the inside, because if he took down the exterior part, he could no longer rebuild it. If the house is inside this area, if something was to happen and they were to get destroyed or damaged, would they be able to rebuild?
Yeah, they could rebuild as is, Mike can probably elaborate on it professionally.
You're speaking of the Miles View Drive property that was rezoned from light industrial to MR30 low density residential maybe 2 years ago. And you're correct, because he was in a light industrial zoning district, no residential is allowed whatsoever. So technically his home was a non-conforming use, and you cannot expand a use that doesn't conform with the zoning code. So he could maintain it. I think there was maybe provisions for a small building addition, but no other houses or structures were allowed. So by rezoning to MR30 low density residential, he's now conforming because that's what that district's meant for, and he's free to do anything with residential. The one thing I'll call out is this is not a zoning map, and these are not zoning districts that apply regulations to anyone's property. It's just the comprehensive land use plan for the town that says by 2040, We want to encourage these uses for these areas.
Right. Well, I understand this is for the comprehensive plan, but what we voted on last week and it passed, that does
Mhm.
look at rezoning. And I know they said that that was passed but didn't have to be applied. So we can discuss that in a minute.
Okay,
But,
that all you got?
yeah. So if they, in this right here zoning, if there's houses in there, if something happens to them, they can, if it burnt down, they could rebuild it, but it had to go back to the same floor plans.
No, this is just a comprehensive, we're,
Okay, so that don't even affect in this.
Yeah, that-
Okay,
That's separate from this, but you're correct.
Okay.
You can rebuild, you have a right to rebuild a non-conforming structure or reestablish that use. I think you have a certain time frame to do that. You can't just sit on it for 5 years and then come back and do it. But you're correct. It can be rebuilt, just not expanded.
okay.
Mhm.
any other questions? Um, did the planning board, did they have anybody show up for public comment in any of this that you can remember?
No, again, we're not rezoning properties. So
Exactly.
there were no letters sent out. There was no sign
Exactly.
posted. But no one came out to the best of my knowledge.
Gotcha.
And again, we have planning board members here tonight if you have questions for them as well.
Right. Do we have, any property owners, that this would be affecting that you know of that's here tonight that would like to come up and speak? Okay. Check my cheat sheet here. We got the public comment. Anybody want to get up and for public comment on this public hearings? Be glad to hear you if you want to. Hear none? All right, any other questions before we close this public hearing? No, no, no. Okay. I just think this is going in the right direction from what I'm hearing from the people on the street, as far as Wade Mills River's, growing too fast right now, so we're gonna safeguard some things here. I need a motion to come out of, public hearing.
Make a motion that we come out of public hearing.
Okay, Sandra's got us coming out
Second.
and Shay's got us. All right, any discussion before we come out? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. So we're out. So we may need a little bit of help with this,
It's right here.
I gotcha. Okay.
I will make a motion to approve text amendment TXT 24-03 as written and adopt ordinance 2024-11.
All right, I got a first. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Jay and James. All right, any discussion? Hearing none?
I think it looks like a good comprehensive plan that the planning board has worked on very hard, and I appreciate all the work they did on it. I think it would be good to put it over the whole town, but I think we need to change some of the verbiage in there so that the residents still have rights for their property.
Okay. All right, I got first, second. Any more discussion?
So we need to add the statement of consistency to my motion. Okay. I need to add to my motion to adopt the statement of consistency with the Making Mills River 2040 comprehensive plan. The text amendment is consistent with goal 1, objective 1.1, policy 1.1.3, objective 1.3, policy 1.3.1, policy 1.3.2, and objective 2.4, policy 2.4.1.
Thank you. James, you okay with that?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want to.
Shorter next time, people.
Okay, got a first, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Put that to good use. All right, let me get hold up here. So we're going back now to the ordinance 2024-10, the text amendment that we adopted last time for discussion. Okay, let me see. We may not have that one right here with me. So go ahead, Sandra. Tell us what we need to know about that one.
Well, when we voted on the text amendment at the last meeting, I had expressed concern and had hoped to table it, but y'all said that that was the best way to get the people to come to the meetings was to go ahead and adopt it and that we didn't have to apply it,
Okay.
right?
I'm gonna wait to hear what else you got to say. I'm not agreeing 100% with that, but
Okay. Well, with this, with this right here, going back to this is where the heartburn is.
okay.
Um, looking at the, overlay for the district, for the town part, the 500 feet going down through there. 500 feet's almost 2 football fields.
Mhm.
And the question again there was, if you do that, that was gonna be the business section, right? Or for commercial,
Yes, for the commercial part.
right?
Yeah.
If you do that, are we gonna get into the situation there, the same thing? Cause there's a lot of houses, if you look down through there, that are in that area. If something happens to them, are they gonna be able to rebuild?
So when you say down through there, where you,
280, um, going, say, well, you can start at Ray Hill Road if you want to, and go all the way down to the Transylvania County line.
right,
I mean, going past your dad's produce stand and all that, there's a bunch of houses in there that are up close to the road that
Mm.
500 feet is gonna take them in.
but when you say take them in, what are you talking about?
They're gonna be in that 500-foot corridor.
Yeah, but you know, when in saying that, and I'll refer to Mike for some suggestion on this too. You know, really the only thing we're talking about when you're talking about that direction is that now is that little or potentially when it's redone is just that little pod right there at the country cover, the country store. That little section that was in purple on that last map.
Okay, so they're not gonna zone the whole rest of it out through there and take it out of multi-use and put it
Well,
down?
if they take it out of multi-use, that's what will protect it. Right now, they can do anything they want to up there they can do anything they want to now.
Right, peak to peak,
Yeah,
It could all turn
right.
into,
yeah, they could do anything they want to now, anything,
it could all turn
with
into
no
commercial.
setbacks, virtually hardly anything.
Right. Well, I understand wanting to preserve it and keep it rural, but at the same token, I'm concerned about the residents that are up close to the road that will fall within that 500 feet.
I mean,
What, 500 feet?
Chairman.
Yeah, go-
come in, please.
Please
So-
do.
So just as background, the only reason this is on the consent agenda is because honestly, we forgot to include it at the last meeting.
Mm.
So
Well, I was glad it was because like I say, I
Yeah.
still had questions.
So, yeah, normally with a text amendment, we'll have the motion to approve the statement of consistency and the ordinance all in one, and this just wasn't included last time.
Right,
The 500-foot corridor overlay right now is just designed for the architectural requirements. And at earlier planning board meetings, and I think when we had the discussion for input from council that one time, we had talked about possibly using that as a way to allow businesses closer to the road. But the planning board members can correct me if I'm wrong. They actually went back and we amended the zoning district, the rural residential, to allow for some of those rural lighter commercial uses. So this zoning district that was adopted the last time, and again, not applied to any property, it's just in the code book,
right.
allows residential and allows businesses, but the businesses, some of them will require a minor special use permit.
Okay. And about I know they said on there, one of the things they did not want was, like automotive repair or engine repair. Would that pertain to the same thing as small engine repair? Like if somebody wanted to have a lawnmower, or they fix lawnmowers, weed eaters and stuff like that, would that pertain to the same thing?
I'd have to look up real quick.
I just want
If-
to know how strict it's gonna be on telling people what they can and can't do.
Now, if it's just someone doing a small engine repair in their yard as a side business, I don't think that's something we're gonna look at. It's more about a commercial establishment coming in
Okay,
and doing like a commercial site plan review with a zoning permit.
okay.
But yeah, if you'll give me a 30 seconds, I can pull it up for you real quick.
That's, I just wanted a little more clarity on it because I wasn't real confident in it.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we don't do something
I agree with that.
that upsets everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why we have these public hearings, like we hope to get bigger crowds than this even here for them to chime in so we can hear
Right.
exactly what they want. Cause it's hard for the five of us to make this decision.
Right.
So these are the commercial uses, I'll say, that are allowed with a minor special use permit through the Board of Adjustment. So it's landscaping, materials, sales and storage, machining, assembly, and service operations in an enclosed building of 7,500 square feet or less. Offices, kennel and animal boarding facilities, and then it gets into utility stations. And then the allowed uses, with nothing else besides a zoning permit, is single-family homes, accessory dwellings, duplexes, churches, cemeteries, customary accessory buildings for residences, farm and produce stands, care homes, child care and adult care facilities, club lodge, community building, adult daycare, public facilities and properties and buildings, riding stables, indoor commercial shooting range, parks and public space, golf course or country club, camp, bed and breakfast, and incidental home occupation.
Right.
And maybe that's a good example. An incidental home occupation is where you basically run your side business on your property,
Right.
but the primary use of your property is still a home.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what was not allowed?
There's no prohibited use list. It's just the permitted uses and then the ones with the minor special use permit. There are the ones with the major special use permit, but that's not what you're talking about. That's planned residential developments, bigger things.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got anything else on that we
Mm.
need to deal with?
No,
You good with it?
I think I'm good with it now.
Okay. Anybody else got anything while it's on the board? Hearing none? Okay, so now that we pulled that off, do we need to, make a motion to adopt that, correct? Okay, with a consistency statement as well? No. Oh, okay, we just missed the other one. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so if someone to make us that motion to adopt ordinance 2024-10,
I'll make the motion.
okay, second? All right, any more discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we're down to some reappointments here. For the Ag Advisory Committee, Bert, let's deal with, well, the terms are basically the same. Bert and Bradley Johnson, Bert Limpkins and Bradley Johnson. Their terms are ending August 27th. They
I-
both,
I've spoken with both of them and they're both willing to continue to serve if council chooses. There are no applications on file.
It's always been a hard committee to
Okay.
find people to serve. on.
yep. They pretty much been on since the beginning too,
Yes.
haven't they? Yep. I'd entertain a motion to, reappoint both of those.
Your department, James.
So moved.
Thank you, James.
Second.
Second, Shay. Any more discussion on them two? Hear none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hear none. All right, budget amendment ordinance 2024-12.
Okay, as you're aware, you have incentive agreements with different businesses. And in 2022, the Partnership for Economic Development started tracking whether or not these businesses were in compliance on a portal, which made better records and told us, don't pay this one and this one. They've not completed their reporting, telling us that they have created and or maintained X number of jobs and et cetera. Then at the time, I tried to find out, when they came into compliance, were we to pay that year as well as whatever current year once they caught up? And I never could get an answer. So it was not budgeted for, but it turns out we did owe them. And GF Linamar is in compliance now, and we owe them a couple of years. So we just needed to do a budget amendment in order to cover that payment to them for a couple of years. The payment has been made. So this would bring your budget into it's not really out of balance. You've had a couple of capital projects that weren't completed. So it's a matter of moving funds from those line items into the incentive line item, but it's across departments. So I need your approval to do this.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to approve this budget amendment is this actually gonna be for fiscal year 2024, correct?
Yes, it's for the current fiscal
Okay.
year. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve budget amendment ordinance 2024-12.
All right, Shay's made the motion, second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandra. Any more discussion on it? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, discussion item, solicitor ordinance. Who wants to lead us in that?
I'll be happy to, Mr. Mayor. So I think there's a few pieces of the puzzle here that maybe various folks will want to talk about. But I think the reason it's on your agenda is your planning director needs some direction from council relative to your standard protocol as to how to proceed. That's why it's on your agenda. To give you a little background, I think you've already heard some things here this evening about why this was a concern. I did receive some information from Councilmember Good and from Mayor Gantz. Reached out to Deputy Flair. He had already been involved in some of this. So there's folks with different pieces of the puzzle, but I think the planning director just needs some direction as to how to proceed. You guys have been basically informed as to what had taken place in the community. So be glad to answer any questions if that would help.
Okay, if we develop a solicitation permit application and they come in, they find out about it at some point, they come in, they apply. How quick do they get back out on the street?
I guess it'd depend what you write in the code. You know, if we adopt something, we
Okay.
threw something together pretty quick, just a registration form,
Right.
and then put together a one pager about door-to-door business conduct and how they should, conduct themselves interacting with residents. But I mean, that could be written in the code, but
Okay.
in theory, a simple permit like that would be a day or two for us.
Okay. So have you looked at, I know we've looked at a couple other municipalities way they're handling it.
Mhm.
Do you feel like we need to edit ours a little bit compared to theirs, or where you at with that?
Well, we have nothing now. I mean,
I'm
and that,
talking about as far
okay.
as us going, moving forward to draft one.
got it. Our only weakness is we don't have an internal police department. So I mean, and where I worked before, we had something similar as well, where we would just call up the police chief and they would do, you know, a criminal record check. And Mr. Player can elaborate on this maybe, but I don't think law enforcement can do a full background check unless
No.
there's some criminal prosecution or something going on. But basically they could check some criminal databases, sex offender database. And if everything checked out, the person got the permit. The other thing I was informed of by Mr. Player is that a lot of times if these are scammers and not legitimate door-to-door business salesmen, they won't even come in to register
Mhm.
because basically we would require a photo ID and copy it. So
Right.
again, similar to the temporary vendor ordinance, we require that information. So if there is a complaint, we know who you are and how to get in touch with you.
Gotcha.
Jim,
Can
did
I
you
say
want?
something?
Oh,
Shannon?
Absolutely.
Okay, a little background to this was, end of last week. Um, I was talking to Shannon on the phone and somebody knocked on my door. So I got up and went to the door and there was a gentleman there whom had been up at the house above me for an hour and a half talking to her and then was down at my house. Well, he was wanting to sell me envir
Organic.
organic pest control. Well, I asked him, I said, do you have a business card? Oh, I just ran out. I said, okay. Do you have a solicitor's license? Yeah, I've got one. I said, oh, where'd you get that at? And he said, I stopped by the police department and got it. And I said, oh, okay. Well, can I see it? Well, he thumbed down and pulled one up and stuck it up there. And I got my phone out to take a picture of it real quick. And he throwed his hand over it. He didn't want me to take a picture. Well, it was from Weaverville. And I told him, I said, that's Buncombe County. It's not us. And he said, well, I'm here. I said, well, how'd you get here? And he said, I walked. I said, well, how far'd you walk? He said, I walked 10 miles. I said, oh, well, you don't look like you walked 10 miles. And I called the sheriff's department because things wasn't adding up. And while he left walking, and while I was waiting for the sheriff's department to come, a neighbor come out. And she said that her son had called her and said he was at her house at 3 o'clock. Now this was 8:30 at night,
Mhm.
but he was there at 3 o'clock, and he told her, that his mother owned the house and she wasn't there. Well, she came out while I was waiting on the sheriff to get there, and she said that when she pulled in, he was standing in the bushes and surprised her at 8:30 at night. So things were getting a little fishy there. Well, talked to other people, and he told another neighbor down the road that the elderly lady in front of me had told him that she had participated, which was not true, and that she had told him to go see this gentleman that um he would be in need of the service. So he was misrepresenting neighbors to neighbors, and he was just telling a whole bunch of non-truths. So the next morning, I got a phone call and somebody said, he's on Pennsylvania Road now. And I thought, okay. So I called back and told him that he's on Pennsylvania Road. And I think you did some investigation, Shannon, and said that it was a company from Charlotte and they had, was it 50? How many people did they have in the county?
I think Deputy Player had spoken to the person from one on the office in Charlotte, and a satellite office in Asheville. six representatives out, but not all the folks.
Right. But, and you offered them the chance to come by here and get permits
Well,
or papers?
in our discussion, what we came up with was what Director Donzak mentioned, that since we didn't have an ordinance, probably a good thing to do is try to set up a registration process, at least have them come by the town hall and register, so create a form that was sent to front office staff, and I called basically the supervisor. Left a message for him that his representatives would come by town hall. I don't think that very many by, but we set things in motion so that we could at least get some information on the folks who were in town doing this kind of work, if they would show up.
Right,
As is mentioned, have an ordinance.
right.
Basically say we violate. Trespassing was another issue, I think. Oscar mentioned that.
Well,
Players may have some.
the deputy that came to my house, I told him, I said, he walked past 2 no trespassing signs to get to my house. And he said that I can do something about. But, also in talking to people, since that incident, there's another gentleman riding around again in Mills River with a freezer in the back of his truck selling meat.
Mhm.
And you don't know if it's good, bad, horse, dog.
Yeah, it's supposed to be USDA stamp. I mean, so if it ain't,
Yeah,
you'd be crazy to buy it. But he's been doing it for,
years.
50-something years, him and his
Right.
family. So,
I just think for safety reasons, it might be something good to look at. I'm not interested in running the sheriff's department crazy. If you set the fees for the permits up,
mhm.
and if somebody's issued a ticket, put it to a price to where, it's not gonna be so welcoming to keep redoing, but still make provisions like we had discussed before for nonprofits
Mhm.
to where, they can get a permit. If they're sitting in front of a store selling, they're on store's property. They don't need a permit. They've got store's permission. But going door to door is where I think the permits would be beneficial.
So where are you at? You want to give us? Yeah, absolutely. Come on up. We value your wisdom.
Well, my caution is regardless of what you do, I want everybody to keep in mind when we talk about a background check and being on Fletcher Town Council, we have a similar process in Fletcher. We cannot do a criminal background check on somebody in the state of North Carolina unless they're being hired for a criminal justice agency or unless there's an open criminal investigation targeting that individual. So all I'm able to do is go out, get their name, run a warrant check on them, see if there's any outstanding warrants. Even if there's no outstanding warrants, that does not say they're not a predator, they're not a scammer, they're not trying to
Mhm.
hoodoo somebody. We've had several instances where right now people are going around, if you've seen in the news media, where people are using names of officers at the sheriff's office to scam people out of money. People have got to use their due diligence. If it doesn't sound right, if it sounds too easy, if anything throws a flag, people need to stop, call the sheriff's office, call town hall. But this permitting process is more of just a validation that, hey, they're in the area.
Right.
Now, from the trespassing standpoint, with most any trespasser, with Jim's situation, by the time when I got there, the gentleman was walking down 191 towards the park. I stopped him at the park entrance. He had his business shirt on with the logo. He had his ID card for active environmental on. And, he had his shirt, that and his driver's license. We ran a check on him. That still doesn't mean he's not going to go to other places. So just understand with the trespassing part, he had already left. So trespassing in North Carolina is if you ask them to leave and they refuse to leave, they're now trespassing. And we can arrest for that if they're consistently still, or they've been asked to leave and they come back at a later date. Now they're trespassing again, and we can address that. From a criminal standpoint, other than communicating threats, that sort of thing, from a criminal standpoint, there's not a whole lot we can do other than identify them, do a warrant check, make sure there's nothing on them right now that we could remove them from the property for. But they can still continue on down the road and do what they want to do. I hope that helps.
So the main reason I put this on the agenda as a discussion item was just to have this conversation in front of the public. And then if you'd like us to begin drafting a text amendment to the business regulation section of the code, we can do that. Just give us the direction to do so.
Yeah, I feel like we need one. In that, I think we need to, I'm sure y'all will come up with some real good stuff, but what do y'all think about putting time on it?
I think that would be a good thing to put on there
I mean,
and not 8:30 at night.
yeah, okay. So stuff like that, just think about stuff like that and bring it back to us. Anybody else, any advice to give in writing this thing? No, okay,
So I'm taking that as council directing us to draft the text amendment.
yeah.
Great, thank
You
you.
good with it?
Yeah.
Good with it, yeah. You don't need that one by motion, do you, Sue, for direction on that? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, staff updates when you get caught up, Sue.
No further report.
I hear you. Oh, Patty, town clerk. No report. All right, Mr. Malachek.
Uh-oh. So just an update. I've told a few of you already, but for the rezoning public input meeting, those postcards hit mailboxes we heard on Wednesday. So a month ahead of the meeting, so we hit our target on that. And in just the 2 days, Wednesday and today, we've had 50 responses online already. I think 2 or 3 surveys have been completed, hard copy in person and turned in as well. And so we're saving those and then entering those into the system so we can accumulate all the results. But again, we'll present preliminary results from that at the July 23rd special meeting. And then we'll keep the survey open for a little longer in case someone comes to that meeting and wants to record their input or fill out a survey. And last, we already kind of addressed this, but with the planning board schedule, I heard council's okay with giving them additional time to consider the rezoning application. Again, it's not a statutory requirement that they can't consider it anymore. It just says council can move forward without them after 60 days. So if you're
Okay.
okay with that, we'll just keep on
Yeah, keep on
with the
digging.
planning board review.
Everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, is that all you got? Mr. Balla?
The only thing I would mention is that we're working on a contract between the town and the county relative to library operations. So we're busy on that.
Okay, thank you. Council comments. Andrew, you got anything for me?
I done said my piece.
Okay. Shay, James, anybody? Nope. All right, everybody try to stay hydrated. It's hot out there. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sandra, second.
Second.
Shay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we're out of here.